Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here to continue our build on the Beanery with this video 2 of the series, so stay tuned. Okay, so now that you've done all your research and collected your photographs, maps, blueprints, or whatever you could come across to try and build this building that you want to build, how do you turn those pictures or blueprints into an actual building? Well, in my previous video we discussed a few of the minor points, but in this video we're going to go more into detail. There's a lot of things and processes that you can go to get to that point depending upon what research material you were able to come across. I hope some of you really went out there and looked. Some of this stuff's hard to find. Some of the original buildings still exist out there, and you can go get permission and measure the buildings and go take pictures of all 4 sides of the buildings if you can get up high enough, even the roof, because the roof detail in a lot of buildings from the perspective of a person looking down at a layout, you see a lot of the roof, so a lot of the roof details really do matter a lot. Now where do we go to take it to the next level to actually lay out a building and start to build one? And that's where we'll pick up right now. Okay, so if you have blueprints to your building, it makes everything really nice and easy, and you can just follow along with all that and build your building by the dimensions and stuff off the blueprint. With this Beanery, it was the original Grafton hotel, and there are no blueprints that I've been able to find over the years. Even the track maps and stuff for the yards are not real specific as far as this building goes. But I was able to come across this Sanborn map at the University of West Virginia, and I blew up this copy of this building, and what I did was I went to a blueprint company or somebody that deals with engineers and working with blueprints, and had them scale this up for me and blow it up to a certain dimension. I'll show you how I got some of those dimensions earlier, but I want you to look at this because this gives you a lot of good information. If you're going to do interior lit rooms, this tells you what some of those rooms were and what happened in some of those rooms, where the kitchen was, the dining rooms, the ovens, hotel offices, ticket offices for the railroad itself, telegraph office. But it also gives you the heights of the floors. As we can see here, it tells you the very point building out there was 2 stories. The one behind it was 3 stories, 2 stories, 2 stories. Single little tiny 1-story sheds off of either side of that third building back. But it also tells you that each of the floors was 12 foot tall. So it gives you an overall dimension for the building itself as far as the height goes. So by going with pictures, this gives you something to work off of to come to some conclusions with that and start figuring out your dimensions from that. Okay, so months ago, before I started building this structure, I was working at the club where the structure will end up going, and we were laying out track, and I needed to have something to put in place to work the track in and around this building so that I knew the building wasn't going to impede on the track or vice versa. So at that point in time, using the map method, I went to a Office Depot and had them blow it up. I'll show you in a minute where I came across a couple of wall dimensions to give me the size that I wanted them to blow it up to, and they worked with it until they could get me the size, and then from there I just drew out the building as it is here. Now, I did make a couple of little errors in the drawing that I used. Wasn't similar to the drawing that we had on here earlier, and these buildings that are 1 little story kind of shed-like structures are a little bit bigger in size, and this building here is actually offset to one side and not centered the way it is in here. So as I go through and start to build this building, I'll make those 2 corrections. So a lot of times when you're doing this kind of thing by the seat of your pants or flying off the cuff, so to speak, you do come across issues that you have to deal with and try to figure out sometimes. Those I came across later, so we're going to correct them as I build this. But you can see the structure in HO scale is pretty good size. This wall out here is 18 feet 6 inches across the very end of that long two-story building at the very end. This would be the 3-story tower that's right behind it. The 2 hotel main buildings are here. The walkway would come in across the center part here. So anyway, this is just something to work with as a footprint to work your track in and around. And it's something as a placeholder, gives you an idea how the building's going to work out so your tracks have good clearance. So anyway, and this also gives me a footprint, which is basically the size of where my walls will come up from, with all the basic dimensions to work from for the bottoms and tops of the walls. So anyway, that's the first thing I started with on this Beanery building.
One way to start to get some of the dimensions for your buildings is, well, I work from these photographs. Since I don't have measurements to go by, I take one of these photographs and I enlarge one section of the photograph to this. I know that these windows normally, they're 4 by 4 panes. That means that they're double sashed, 4 panes in the top, 4 in the bottom. This one is too wide, with about a 6-inch board in between the 2 windows. Now each of the windows where they actually open is approximately 2 feet wide. And I know that from being in the building industry, but also when I ordered my windows, that's about the scale that they were. So I enlarge it up on the screen and use my engineer rule and find a scale and match the 2 together to where I can match the window so that I know it's 2 foot long. Then I come back here and measure across the whole building, and I get 18 foot 6 inches across the end of the building, and that's how I came up with that dimension for my footprint. The building is roughly about 30 feet tall. This photograph doesn't exactly match up perfectly, so I think it's probably just a little over 30 feet. But we knew each of the floors was 12 foot, and there's boards in between the floors and boards in the roof too, and that support the ceiling and the roof, which add to that height overall as well. The next thing I do is just continue around the building. I find these pictures of each sides of the building, and I blow sections of them up to where I can get the detail and dimensions and things like that out of these that I want. But in this building here, also there's a lot of windows and doors, and there's several different types of doors. So I've got to figure out here's some more 4 by 4s, windows doubled up in the tower up above, but on this side they're actually 6 by 6. 6 panes. There were 6 pane double hung windows on most of these other windows on this side. There's 2 doors here at the bottom, but the 3rd door back on the far right hand side of this picture is a different type of door. And then this is the second part of that building on back. You can see another door back there and more windows. You can see the windows that cross over the building, that crosses across the whole building, but also looking at the chimneys. And this unusual vent stand on top of this small outdoor shed here as well. And then the same thing with the other sides of the building. Just looking back through, blowing up portions of each of these sections to look at the doors. There ended up being 4 different types of doors on this building and 2 different types of windows. There's a little small 1 by 1 window in that little shed off that one corner of the building there. And like I said in my previous video too, don't ignore all these long distance shots. I didn't really have a good shot of the roofs of this building. I knew this little access building was on top of the far end building. I never did find a picture that actually shows a door, but I'm sure there's at least a door, and probably on this side, because I see a picture of the other side and there's not one on that side, so I'm just assuming there's no windows but 1 door. but this gives me a placement for each of the chimneys, and some of them are about 3 feet by 3 feet, a couple of them are a little bigger than that. But it gives me another door on the back entrance. Here you can see at one time there was a stairwell off the back wall back there, and you know, a window in that little room that goes underneath where the walkway goes across overhead, and just figures out all those details. And from there, with the size of the windows, you know, it gives you all the detail you want. This just kind of gives you more detail, that bridge coming into that far end. You can see the third story being added onto that back building there. Now, if you're working from blueprints and you're trying to scale something up as far as a drawing for a blueprint instead of working for maps, this is just the way that I do it. I mean, there's certain tools you'll need no matter how you do it, but I have these little drawing boards, lap boards, that I used in art school. You can, as long as any wood or tabletop that you have is perfectly square to work off of, that's what you need. At least one really good straight edge to work off of. And from that, you can use T-squares off that edge once you get your paper taped down so it's not moving around on you. And with a T-square, you can use angles of any type. I have this one mainly for cutting plastics and stuff, this one mainly for doing drawings. As you're working on your drawings too, make sure, I mean, a lot of people use ink because it's permanent and it doesn't change once you put it down. Make sure when you buy all these different implements and things to do your drawings with, that they have a raised edge so that the inks don't bleed back underneath the edge of what you're working with and mess up your drawings. But anyway, just the basic things, the squares, like I talked about, different types of angles. Sometimes some of the buildings and stuff may have water tanks and stuff to where you need circle templates. I mean, you can use pennies, quarters, nickels, dimes, you know, bottle tops, whatever, that works too. One good thing to do if you do buy templates is to just take some pieces of tape and put on the lower side of it in places where they're not going to block your drawing, to give it that raised surface as well so that the ink does not bleed back underneath. If you're drawing in many different scales, these engineer rules, they don't have necessarily N gauge, O gauge, HO gauge and all that, but if you're drawing in a certain scale from a blueprint and then you're going to take it somewhere to have it made bigger or smaller, you can use engineering rules to go by to give you the proper scales. But the main thing you're going to need in the long run is a good hobby rule. This has all the various scales on it, HO, O, S gauge, N gauge. It has a lot of charts and stuff on this particular model so you can convert things as well. This is a Mascot TM model railroader scale rule. Stainless steel, make sure you get something that's like that, not necessarily plastic. I mean, some of the kits and older kits and stuff you get used to have paper ones with it you could cut out and go by the paper. The more you get into these higher grade tools, the more accurate your drawings are going to be, or even for cutting the plastic or anything when you're marking things out. So scale rules are definitely a major plus. The next thing I do is from this drawing of the building, the footprint, I come in and go ahead and just get some rough drawings to make notes on so that I can measure things, figure out windows, doors, details, and get an idea of how many I need for everything. So I just drew a basic building here and I numbered all the walls, so as I go through looking at my drawings I know what walls went where. Also on this drawing I drew in the chimneys. There's actually 3 different sizes of chimneys, so I labeled them X, Z, and a X with a circle around it. Then I come through and do all my individual walls. I figure out where all the 6x6 windows are going to be, the 4x4 windows, the different types of doors, and label which doors go in which buildings. And in the corner of each of those drawings, then I come down here and for everything that's on that page I get a page total of each type of door and each type of a window, so I can keep a running track of how many windows and doors that I really need to order. and just kind of a general ideas and notes to myself, like the placement of those stairs on the back wall. Those stairs weren't there during the time period that we actually modeled, but I think it adds a lot of interest to this building, so I'm going to go ahead and add those stairs in anyway onto this wall. And here's just continuing down with the last two sheets. You can see there's quite a number of these 6x6 windows here. And then when I get done, I put together one whole sheet that gives me totals of every type of door, the chimneys, the windows, every different thing that I will need to order for parts on this building. I put down this sheet of paper so I know what to do when I go down and start to put my order together. The next thing I do is go ahead and order the parts. I found two companies that really carry most of the doors and windows that I use. This Grant line had two of the different doors that I use. This one is not exactly like the one in the building, but I did buy some other parts that maybe I can kind of doctor this and make it a better representation of the door. I mean, it's not bad on its own, but it could be a little bit better. Grant Line, by the way, is also going out of business. They're taking orders to the 1st of May, and then by June they're just going to be selling out what they have in stock and then going under. So anybody needs stuff from Grant Line, better get it on order. The rest of these parts are from Tichy. I really like Tichy parts. They're very well molded, very clean. But they had the doors and the windows and various other things that I needed for this build. There's like 110 of the 6x6 windows or something. I can't remember what that sheet said, but and then several of these other doors. I bought these side lights because those doors, if I need to doctor them up, I can add these side lights to the doors that the ones didn't look quite right, so I ordered these anyway. I think I can doctor them to make them work. Then I went through my parts bins. There's parts here to some chimneys. Instead of ordering just two single 1/1 windows, I found these in the box, and I can cut out the mullions below. And I don't know if I'll mold chimneys or use these, but anyway. And here's the 4x4 windows. The Tichys also come with the glass in them, or the clear material, and also shade material for your windows, so they're a very nice product. Okay, hopefully we covered everything on how to lay out a building and get started into the process. I hope it was informative. If you're building a building out there and following along with this process and you have issues, add questions and stuff into the comments below. There may be things I didn't think about and didn't cover. A lot of times once I post these videos, I'm like, duh, I should have added that in there too. So anyway, if there are questions you have, add them below and I'll answer them and get back to you. But I think I covered most everything that I'm doing as far as this building is concerned. There are some things that you didn't find on this building that you may in others that would take you in some different directions. One thing we didn't cover was underneath the tower roof, the 3-story roof there are actually some really ornate supports. That's the only roof on the whole building that has them. But at a later point in time, I've got to make a bunch of those. So I think what I'm probably going to do is make a couple of masters and just mold all those. So that'll be a show in itself probably on how to go about doing that process. Another thing I'm probably going to add to the building that wasn't in these early pictures is I'm probably going to get some real fine LEDs and get some lamp shades, and over some of the major doors add some exterior lighting on this building. There was also a lot of vent pipes through the roof that I didn't show and didn't order parts for. We'll show them when doing the build, but I'm just going to make them out of styrene tubing and stuff, so I didn't feel like it was necessary at this point to really go into that. The other thing we didn't really cover were the brick sheets that I'm going to be using for the build. The whole building is brick. It's painted in all these early phases, but I had ordered these off of a person online. They're Walther sheets. They're just slightly not tall enough for a 2-story building, so I've got to add them together. But the way these are made, they're made so that you can glue two of them together and have a real nice seam between the layers of brick, which is nice. The one thing I was disappointed in when I ordered all of this, the building obviously has no ornate rows of bricks as you go up the walls. They're just a flat pattern through the whole building. And when I got these bricks in, every eighth or so row of here, there's an ornate row of bricks. And that was not in the description or the picture of the material when I ordered it, so I am kind of disappointed. But I think since these are painted and not really mortar showing in the joints and stuff, they won't show that much, so I'm going to go ahead and use them as is anyway. But in any case, I think that covers mostly everything that we need to in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. I hope it helps you in some way. Like I said, if you're building your own building, you have questions, put it in the comments below and I'll try to answer them and get back to you. And I want to thank you for coming out and watching my video. Like and share, hit the subscribe button below and the bell, and then you'll be notified when the rest of the series and other builds come out later on. And every once in a while I throw a weird video in as an update to other things I've done or something like that as well. But in any case, thank you very much for coming back and watching my videos, and happy model railroading.